Good afternoon, or I suppose good evening, everyone. It is September 13th, 2023, and we are done with the CPI session. Actually, a quieter session than I had anticipated. ES only making, I think, a sub 30-point range, NQ with a pretty mediocre range as well. What we had was a morning rant, or maybe we should start with sellers were unable to really get anywhere. Got down to kind of the lows of this balance I've been talking about for a number of days, kind of this kind of support area. We got down there during that FOMC candle and then spiked back into range, and kind of got the same thing as yesterday, where we had this morning ramp, turned around there for a while, eventually got a dip that was bought up above the overnight low. We did break yesterday's or the prior day's low. Uh, the dip was bought, ramped upwards, unable to really make any progress. Looks like we sold off of this little trend line over here. Didn't even pay attention to that, but uh, we just kind of churned at the highs there from about 11 a.m. until 3 p.m. around there before selling off, making a higher low, and then kind of closing around the middle. So no real major structure broken. We have continued to make lower highs of the day. Monday's high coming in at 43 half. Yesterday's high coming in at 39s, and then today's high coming in at 30 quarter. What I was looking for was a break of the overnight high to get us and move into 45 or 32 and possibly a breakout for higher. But we did not get that. We did not get any sort of major breakout. Instead, just kind of churning in range. Same thing on the Nasdaq. Let me get rid of some of these things. There we go. Made a little dip into 400. Kind of the same thing. Lows of this balance area. Uh, before coming back into range, unable to take the overnight low, did take a break of yesterday's low, and then coming back into range. Unlike ES, whereas ES kind of churned around and didn't make new highs, this thing kept making higher highs and highs and highs, accepting above the IB high before getting into that weekly open at 618s and putting in a daily high there, 2 ticks higher or something like that. It's so close, it's even hard for my trading view to find it. About a few ticks higher above that weekly open before selling off towards the close, holding IB mid, pretty much the tick I believe, and then ramping back up into the close. So no major structure broken here. Nice to see that the Bulls have once again held this kind of 475 area that I've been talking about for a while here. This right here, that's what I was saying. I wanted to see them hold down to about 418. Yeah, there we go, 406. So, these stupid things hopping over. So they have held this. This is great. That means this breakout inventory that was trying to get long here for a move up above has not gone offside. They are still playing in the game, and now hopefully what we should be setting up for some sort of trend day upwards. So that's what I'm looking for tomorrow. Let's get into this for a second. Let's start off with the ES. News-wise, just PPI pre-market. Friday we got a bunch of stuff coming into 10 a.m. and then maybe I should also just write this in here, OPEX all day. Let me just copy that onto the other chart over here. Here we go. Now, before I move on, something I want to talk about is that my trading has become more dependent on the intraday price action, and if you want to call it flows, you can call it that. You can call it whatever you would like, but my trading has become very dependent on the intraday market-generated information. So these videos may be useful in coming up with zones of interest or just general thoughts of how higher time frame inventory is positioned. But moving forward, I think I'm going to use these videos to be less predictive, if you want to call it that, um, and more so just discuss my thoughts on inventory, how the day went the day prior, and what sort of areas I'm looking at for the day moving forward. I mean, overall, yesterday's prediction wasn't bad, thinking we'd get into 45.32. If you want to talk about, um, if you want to talk about expectations and this and that. This is what I was looking for coming into the day. I was looking for, uh, there you go, you guys can see that. I was looking for a move to around the open, yesterday's open, so 45.25ish, which is what we got, and then an attempt to sell, which would be bid up to about 45.32. The high of the day came in at what, 29? Yeah, 30 quarter. And we did trade up to the open first, which was then sold off. And then eventually we got that move to the high of the day, which came in pretty close. So, although these videos aren't going to be bang on, and I'm going to try and make them less predictive, um, I'm going to still try and do my best here. I just debate the value or validity to them at this point. So, just thought I'd put that out there, and let's go from there. So anyway, what am I looking for? Well, above 45.32, which was this really major resistance, that was the area where we ran all the stops and came back below this kind of 32 until today. What is this? Friday's high? Yeah, about 26 to 32. This has been kind of the spot for me. Um, you can see it was support here during the overnight. This is the main area we're churning against as resistance. Just this area in general is becoming wider and wider. This kind of 32 to 22 area, whatever you want to call it. If we get to the top here, if we break out, we'll be likely above the overnight high. We'll be above today's high of the day. We'll be getting outside of Tuesday's value area high. Um, and 95% value area high as well, coming in at 33. So, in that sort of situation, what I'd be looking for is for us to break out above the weekly open, sitting at 45.38, break this high from Tuesday, which are settlement highs, and maybe we get a bit of short covering going on. So, if we have a low of the day come in at somewhere around, let's call it 22, you'd be looking for at least a 25-point move. So, I think it'd be reasonable to start thinking about a fade somewhere around 54, 55, 52 to 55, sorry, and then maybe that becomes our range on the day. Um, Something like that is what I'll be looking for. Again, with Monday's high, Tuesday's high, and today's high all being lower highs, I think this thing may end up having some room to squeeze. So, if I'm quite honest, once I see some sort of gap up happening and some sort of gap and go trade occurring, the move to me will be to get long against some sort of lower structure and look for a trend day to occur, possibly even for re-entry into this balance over here, getting into this kind of 55, if not 65 area up above here. So that's what I'm going to be kind of playing for to the downside. Um, let's open that up. To the downside, if we break the overnight low, if we start to fail to get a gap up and go situation instead of a gap, and instead get a gap and crap situation, get back below the close, back below yesterday or last week's 95% value area high at 15 and 3/4, which has been a nice level. Uh, if we get below all that, I think this thing is a sell. I think we break today's low of the day coming in at 03. So I think overall this is a sell downwards, perhaps catching a bit at 94. So in that scenario, if we opened, I don't know, let's say the high of the day is somewhere around there, perhaps this thing gets bid up somewhere around the 80s. And if it's really wanting to, maybe we can get down to 65. Same overall concepts on the Nasdaq. I'm looking at this as being kind of our breakout area. Maybe let's see where I didn't label that. This is where I'm looking at the breakout area, actually, pretty much exactly where we're trading. 40 or 15,610-ish. 95% monthly value area high around that 610. 618 is the weekly open, as well as today's RTH high. Also lining up with the afternoon rally fail from Tuesday. So I think what would happen is you get a breakout above these levels, possibly even a gap if during this overnight session, end up breaking the 640, 650 area and really breaking out of this range and getting into that old gap situation around 740 and a critical level, as you can see, if not into that August open around 800. So that's what I'm looking at to the upside. Maybe something like, I don't know, if it's not a gap up scenario, maybe that's your range, 550 to 730, and this, if it really is looking like we got some gas, maybe up to 800 for a large, nice 250 point range to the downside. If instead we lose 550, kind of that point of control, VWAP close, previous days close, all this sort of crap coming in here. If we lose that and get into 525, get below the value area low and IB mid and all that sort of stuff from today, that CPI print high at 525 as well. If we lose all this sort of stuff, I think this is a sell. We break today's low down at 454, probably break this overnight low as well from today's session and get into 365 to 311 and find a bid around there. So in that scenario as well, I think that's about, what, 250 point range? Yeah, right around there. So that's how I'm looking at this going into tomorrow. Hope that makes sense. Hope that helps. Sorry for the longer video with that little ramble interlude there, but just wanted to make that clear that a lot of my trading is going to be MGI dependent intraday. So hope this is still of some value to you guys. It helps me think about what I'm looking for tomorrow, which way this thing might be leaning towards and ranges and so forth. So hope that helps. Have a great night. Trade safe.